Welcome, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Geektopia. I'm your host, Barry, and today's topic of discussion is really going to be on some upcoming DC projects, some recent announcements that have been made. Now, everyone that knows me knows I'm a huge DC fan. I'm very excited at the prospect of all of these projects coming up, both TV shows and films, movies especially. Now, there was an announcement concerning the Justice League, the Snyder Cut, which is obviously the film we really should have got back in 2017. Unfortunately, what we got was a massive disappointment, and I'll hold my hands up and admit I don't think this Snyder Cut was ever going to happen. I really didn't think it was happen. I felt like a lot of fans were basically just kind of hanging on to false hope because I realised that they would have to spend and invest more money in a film that really didn't do that well in the first place. But we're getting it. It's very much, I think, a dream come true for DC fans, and we're going to be able to see Zack Snyder's full vision. Now, it was obviously announced a while back, and that it was going to be 4 hours long. Now, the original plan was to actually release this into four separate segments, so it would kind of be a mini series. They've recently actually scrapped that plan and they've actually said that it's going to be released in its 4 hour entirety, which is exactly how I'd want it. I want to be able to sit there and watch the full 4 hours. Now, this is what I'm a little bit annoyed about, somewhat worried about, is that this is going to be HBO Max exclusive. Okay, now they've actually said that it probably isn't going to be too long until it comes out on Blu ray afterwards, and it will actually get a limited theatrical release. Now, I'm actually from the UK. We have no cinemas open whatsoever. And unfortunately, us downtrodden in the UK, we don't actually have HBO Max either. Now, I don't know if they're going to go along the route of what they did with Wonder Woman 1984 here. Of course, that was HBO Max and it had a limited theatrical release. Is that it will probably end up on Amazon for a rental fee, which I've got absolutely no qualms in paying. I mean, this is a film that I'm hugely excited for. But at the same time, I'm thinking about this is such a big project for DC and Warner Brothers, and how has it not found a UK home? Now, I did actually see an article the other day. There are actually many countries across Europe, especially Eastern Europe, that do actually have HBO Max. They have access to it, but the UK, we're in Western Europe, so us, Spain, France, we don't have HBO Max. Now, I'm sure it's really a case of when. I think we're definitely probably going to be getting HBO Max at some point. But you'd think to yourself, with such a huge project like this, they would have found a UK home for it already. It was only just given a new official release date as of, I believe it was yesterday, may have been the day before, of March the 18th, which really isn't too far away. But we don't have a UK home for it. So, I mean, I'm perfectly fine with waiting for Blu ray because at the end of the day, let's face it, come on, for anyone that's a DC fan or whatever, people are excited for this movie. They're going to be buying it on Blu ray. I can't wait to own this film on Blu ray. But ideally, I would like to see this film before it hits Blu ray. Where, I have absolutely no problems, as I said, spending 15 quid for this movie. Yeah, it's just kind of annoying because obviously in the US, there's so many projects coming out on HBO Max. That's the thing that they really are going out all guns blazing with their announced projects, films and TV shows. Kong v Godzilla. Just to quickly get onto another point, Kong v Godzilla. They obviously released a trailer quite recently. Great trailer. This is a film obviously anticipated by many. This is going to be one of the big movies of the year, certainly in terms of scale. And they released a trailer, but of course it's HBO Max exclusive again. So, I mean, it might hit Amazon with a rental fee. But I mean, I've got no problems in renting these films because at the end of the day, at the moment, the movie industry is suffering, seriously suffering. It's going to take quite some time to come back from this. And I will support film studios all day, every day. So much money is being invested in movies, and they're obviously earning a pittance in comparison to what they were earning before the lockdown. But films like Snyder Cut and Kong v Godzilla and Dune, which is coming out later this year, are all films that I would love to see on the big screen. To me, being a film buff, you can't really beat that big screen experience. Certainly not with certain films. So yeah, with from what I've seen of Kong v Godzilla, I'm very much looking forward to it. At the end of the day, you can't go into a film like this expecting an Oscar-winning script or anything like that. Kong and Godzilla, two of the biggest titans in the history of cinema, duking it out. Yes, I'm very much excited for that. Now, another DC project is obviously the Suicide Squad, which is coming out. Well, its planned release date is August. I mean, who knows? That could get pushed back. Very much looking forward to that. Obviously, the 2016 Suicide Squad was a massive disappointment. Obviously, it was a box office success, but it really didn't go down well with most critics and fans. Now, the Suicide Squad that's coming out this year is, in a way, it's not really a reboot as such, because you've actually got Margot Robbie back as Harley Quinn. You've got Jai Courtney back as Captain Boomerang. Viola Davis is back as Amanda Waller. But there's a whole host of new characters that James Gunn is directing. And of course, James Gunn did a great job with the two Guardians of the Galaxy films. And I'm really hoping he can do for Suicide Squad what he's done for the Guardians of the Galaxy films. I expect this film to be a lot of fun. I expect it to be very much kind of a throwback to the action flicks of yesteryear, of the 70s and 80s. And what I love about the Suicide Squad, this seems to be harking back to the kind of golden age, in which, the Suicide Squad is renowned for throwing in loads of lesser known characters that don't ordinarily get the limelight, throwing them in, giving them some time to shine. But there was kind of an air of unpredictability with the Suicide Squad. You never know who's going to get killed off. Because there's a lot of lesser known characters, a lot of these characters could be seen as disposable, expendable. So, I'm actually expecting quite a few of these characters to actually be killed off, but I'm really looking forward to it. Obviously, it's got quite the cast. You've got Idris Elba's in there as there were rumours going around that he may actually take over Will Smith's role as Deadshot. Now, Will Smith actually had to drop out of the film due to other commitments at the time, etc. So it's going to kind of feel weird to me because Deadshot is very much a core member of the Suicide Squad. He's been there from pretty much day one. Him and Harley Quinn over the years have become core Suicide Squad members. So to me, it's going to kind of feel weird having a Suicide Squad without Deadshot, but never mind. Idris Elba's in there, obviously very good actor playing a character called Bloodshot. You got Michael Rooker in there. It's just a whole host of characters. I mean, you've got Polka Dot Man, who's obviously one of Batman's lesser known villains, a character that's very much kind of disappeared over the years for kind of obvious reasons, I guess. Ratcatcher as well, again, one of Batman's most lesser known villains. They've actually kind of done a gender swap with the character this time round. This is Ratcatcher 2. So who knows? It could be possibly the daughter of the original Ratcatcher or just kind of a brand new iteration of the character. But yeah, that's supposed to be released in August. Now, John Cena's in the film. Now, obviously, I don't rate John Cena as an actor or anything like that. But he's playing a character, again, one of kind of DC's lesser known characters, a character called the Peacekeeper. And he's actually getting his own show already. Now, I'd imagine this character wouldn't be given their own show if not for the fact of John Cena's in the role. Much like Dwayne The Rock Johnson, Black Adam, I mean, you've got two huge WWE stars, ex-WWE stars, that are actually in the DC universe now. With John Cena, the Peacekeeper, he's getting his very own TV show, which is going to be, again, exclusive to HBO Max. It's actually just gone into production. They've actually just started filming. And obviously he's one of the Suicide Squad members making his big screen debut in this film. I'm very much looking forward to the Suicide Squad. I can't see it being worse than the 2016 film. Now, I didn't actually hate the 2016 film because, hate's a really strong word and whatever. I just didn't particularly care for it. I just really didn't like it, and I felt like it was very much a missed opportunity, which is a shame. Because I think the trailers to that film were actually better than the movie itself. I thought they did a great job with the marketing and all that, which is probably one of the reasons it did so well at the box office. It was marketed well. Um, and unfortunately, I think it's a film that was ultimately hindered by so many reshoots. And yeah, it kind of tonally they changed it. But yeah, so anyway, on to the next thing regarding DC. And this is some now taking this with a huge pinch of salt at the moment. Now, I do believe there have been talks, but nothing's been officially confirmed or anything. Is that Batman the Animated Series may possibly make a comeback? Which, oh, yeah, I mean, the 1992 animated series is probably the greatest superhero cartoon of all time. And not just that, but one of the best animated shows of all time, full stop. The 92 animated series is what actually got me into Batman in the first place. It's what made me fall in love with a character. And I didn't really become a big DC comic fan until after Batman the Animated Series. It was very much kind of my introduction. And it was fantastic. I mean, this is a show that kind of transcended most other animated shows. You know, there was such emotional depth to it, such mature, rich storytelling, fantastic animation, stellar voice acting, had a very noir style to it. Obviously, Dinny and Bruce Timm played a massive part in that show. With the voice acting, I mean, it gave us Kevin Conroy as Batman. You know, it gave us Mark Hamill as the Joker, and it just gave us so many fantastic iterations. Some of the best iterations of these characters that have ever been seen on the screen, in fact. It was a fantastic show. It actually picked up, I think it was 4 or 5 Emmy Awards as well. Heart of Ice was certainly a standout episode, which actually deservedly won an Emmy, with Mr. Freeze, in which they gave him a tragic new backstory, which is a backstory that has actually stuck and actually become part of canon. Harley Quinn made her debut in this show. She was originally created to be a one-off character, just as a sidekick for one episode for the Joker. She proved to be so popular. She appeared in quite a few episodes, and then obviously she's become canon, and Harley Quinn's become, you know, a hugely commercial character. Now, yeah, if this was to happen, this has me very, very excited. You know, if they could possibly recapture the spirit and the magic that that show had with Bruce Timm and Paul Dini on board. And now I've not looked into this too much, but to have Conroy back and to have Mark Hamill back as the Joker, this could just be fantastic. I mean, at the moment, as I say, I'm taking it with a pinch of salt. Batman fans would love for this to happen. Okay. At the end of the day, if it comes out and it proves to be nowhere near as good as the original show, whatever, at least they can say they tried. Okay. We've still got the original show to watch and love. Okay. You know, because this new show comes out, whatever, I mean, you could say it's unnecessary or whatever, because Batman the Animated Series is never a show that really went downhill. It was pretty consistent. Obviously, the show in the final season was essentially repackaged as the new Batman and Robin adventures, which the animation had changed. The animation wasn't quite as good in the latest season and so forth, but there was still some really good episodes. I mean, within that time, we had Mad Love, which was originally, obviously, a book by Bruce Timm, Paul Dini, that gave us the origin story for Harley Quinn, in which she falls in love with the Joker. You know, she's obviously his psychiatrist. She breaks him out of Arkham, and he actually made that into an episode of the animated series, which was actually one of the best episodes, in my opinion. Is that, you know, this show comes out, maybe it's not as good, whatever, but we've still got the original show. So I just want to see as much Batman as I possibly can. Now, you know, there's certain villains, for example. There was a comic released not long after Batman the Animated Series that was very much in the same art style. So I kind of treat it as the animated series, but just in a comic format with all new stories, etc. That was called The Batman Adventures. And then it obviously went on to become Gotham Adventures, and it ran for many issues, in fact. Now, quite recently, there was a release of a new comic that started off as digital only, called the Batman Adventures Continue, which again is very much in the spirit and vein of the original animated series, actually giving us some characters that never actually appeared in the animated series, because there were certain Batman villains. I mean, the animated series had a huge amount of villains in it, and it was good because there were actually some villains that people hadn't heard of, lesser known villains, like, for example, the Clock King, who actually got some good episodes and actually got some, some time in the limelight. With the new Batman Adventures, I believe Red Hood's in there, I believe Deathstroke's in there, in very much the animated format. Now, I've heard some really good things about this comic line. I haven't actually jumped into it myself yet, but it's just exciting. For me, it's a very exciting prospect of the animated series coming back. As I said, nothing's been confirmed. I know that Kevin Smith recently said on a podcast that there'd been strong rumours from some reliable sources that this could happen. Now, it would be HBO Max exclusive again. So, yeah, I think it, because HBO Max, I think at the moment, because another show that we've got coming out again, this is again HBO Max really kind of going all out here, is we're actually getting a Gotham City Central live action series. Now, Gotham City Central by Ed Brubaker was a fantastic comic line, and we're actually going to be getting this for the silver screen. Now, we had Gotham obviously released in 2014, which to me, I wasn't really a fan of Gotham. It was a show that started off well enough. It was a show that I feel was good at its peak, but it was never great. And it's just one of them shows that went completely off the rails as each season went on. They just butchered too many characters for my liking. They butchered some of my favourite villains for this show. I mean, I have no criticisms really with the casting. I feel like most actors who played their roles very well. The casting wasn't the problem. I feel like it was the writing. The writing was all over the place. It was very shaky. It's like Bruno Heller didn't really have a clear direction in which they were going in. And Gotham to me was a bold, pretty ambitious project, but it's one that fell flat overall. Now, with this show, from what I know, Jeffrey Wright, that's obviously been cast as Jim Gordon in the Batman movie, is actually in this show. It's going to be centered really, it's going to be focused on the Gotham Police Department, not on Batman. I mean, there could be mentions of Batman here and there. I'm not actually sure if they've given it an actual time frame. So if this is set within Batman's reign or before Batman, I'm not sure. But I'm very excited at the prospect of a very kind of grounded, detective-driven show as Gotham City, because to me, Gotham City is very much a character in its own right. It's a fantastic setting. It's a great location. And I think Jeffrey Wright's going to do a great job as Jim Gordon. I really do. I'm really looking forward to the Batman that's obviously coming out. It was supposed to be out October this year. It's actually been put back to March next year. I'm very looking forward to it. I mean, this is a film that has actually been in development for quite a few years now. Of course, Ben Affleck was originally going to be the Batman. He pulled out. He was actually going to be directing the film. He distanced himself from that. And then Matt Reeves came on board and they basically did an entirely new script. Right? Deathstroke was going to be the original villain, which I was really looking forward to seeing. I've always wanted to see Deathstroke on the big screen. Now, the post-credit scene to Justice League was fantastic. It gave us a tease of Deathstroke. The post-credit scene was probably better than the movie itself. Speaking of which, Deathstroke is actually going to have more scenes, from what I know, in the Snyder Cut. To what capacity, if we're going to be able to see him fight at all, I have no idea. But apparently he's given somewhat of a larger role. A bit more screen time in the Snyder Cut. But of course, Matt Reeves came on board and he wanted to create a very detective-driven story, a murder mystery, if you will. Because, the Batman's the world's greatest detective, but we never really got to see much of his detective solving skills on the big screen before. So this is going to be, more of a detective-driven story. And a character like Deathstroke really wouldn't fit into that story too well. I don't get so I'd be really excited for the fight scenes between Batman and Deathstroke, because obviously Deathstroke is one of them characters that can easily go toe to toe with Batman, but at the same time, because Matt Reeves wanted a detective-driven story, Deathstroke's a villain that wouldn't really kind of fit into that. So we're getting the Riddler himself. And yes, I can't wait because he's being played by Paul Dano. I think Paul Dano is a terrific actor. He's been great in everything I've seen him in. Admittedly, he's not a household name. There's probably a lot of people that don't know him by name. They'd probably recognise him. He was great in Prisoners alongside Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal. And he really held his own as well in There Will Be Blood alongside Daniel Day-Lewis. I mean, how he didn't get Oscar nominated for that, I have no idea. You know, Daniel Day-Lewis is one of the greatest actors in the history of cinema, in my opinion. And Paul Dano, yeah, stood up with Daniel Day-Lewis in that film. So yeah, really looking, because obviously on the big screen, really, aside from the '66 film, we have Jim Carrey's Riddler. You know, in '95's Batman Forever, which, you know, he was kind of he was Jim Carrey, wasn't he? You know, it was Jim Carrey being Jim Carrey, but he perfectly fit the format of the film that he was in. You know, it's very much harking back to the '60s Batman, more cheesy. I'm looking forward to this darker iteration of the character. So I'm really excited to see what Paul Dano brings to the role. And of course, we've got Colin Farrell in there as Oswald Cobblepot. I'm not sure if he's actually fully forward as the Penguin here. I didn't even recognise him. When he was cast, I'm like, what? I've got no problems with Colin Farrell. I think he's quite a good actor and all that. But I'm like, what? Oswald Cobblepot? I just don't see it. For a start, he's like a foot taller than, 4'10", Oswald Cobblepot. But seeing him in the makeup and that, incredible. I didn't even recognise him first time I watched the trailer. And of course, you know, we've got Robert Pattinson in this film, and Robert Pattinson, I think, is a solid actor, a very underrated actor that unfortunately too many people just kind of know him as the Twilight guy, and it's a shame. He doesn't get enough credit. He's done a lot of great independent stuff since. He's proved he's got acting chops. And I think we have the potential here to have a really good Batman. Admittedly, as much as I like Pattinson when he was first cast, I was struggling. I was struggling to envision him. But from what I've seen of him, the trailer that actually dropped, just a little while ago, fantastic. I'm really liking the look of this movie. And yeah, released in it's kind of an agonizing way. I'm hoping that obviously the situation is improved by then, because if it hasn't, then it's probably going to be an HBO Max exclusive again, and it's probably not going to get a theatrical release, or its theatrical release is going to be very limited. So yeah. Now, on kind of a different entertainment spectrum here, something else I'm looking forward to this year from DC. It's being actually developed by Warner Brothers Montreal, that developed the Arkham Origins game, which is obviously considered by many to be kind of the black sheep and the weakest of the Arkham franchise. We're getting Gotham Knights, which is, I mean, Arkham Knight was released back in 2015, and for the last few years, it's been like, are we going to get another Batman game? Are we going to get another Arkham game? And it's always been a case of like when for me, not if. Batman is way too big of a character. They're not going to leave him alone for too long. But it's been like every few weeks or months, it's kind of like been rumblings and rumours. Yeah, there's a new Arkham game coming, blah, blah. And it was announced. It was announced a little while ago. It's called Gotham Knights, and it's a game that isn't actually centered on Batman, because in this story, Batman is actually dead. Bruce Wayne is believed to be dead. Now, I'm not going to speculate whether I think there's a plot twist there or whatever, but what I'm looking forward to from this game is seeing the Court of Owls, for one. The Court of Owls making their video game debut. Now, the Court of Owls, written by Scott Snyder back in 2011, was one of the best Batman storylines in years. Excellent storyline. I think they've created a fantastic new villain with the Court of Owls. And this game is actually centered on the Bat family. So it's Batgirl, Robin, Dick Grayson's Nightwing, and Jason Todd's Red Hood. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see a Batman game just not really centered on Batman. It's centered on the Bat family. Red Hood, for anyone that knows me, knows I'm a big Red Hood fan. He's probably my favourite member of the Bat family, very, very closely followed by Dick Grayson's Nightwing. Now, this game's actually going to be introducing two-player co-op as well, which is going to be kind of interesting to see. Um, I've already, I've seen some footage in that, and I'll be honest, I'm really looking forward to it. But my expectations aren't sky high. I liked Arkham Origins. I liked it. Narratively speaking, yes, it was the weakest of the four games, but it's not without its merits. Arkham Origins gave us some of the best boss fights in the entire franchise. The fight against Deathstroke and Firefly being two definite highlights. Um, it's a shame because I don't feel like Arkham Origins gets quite enough attention. So I think some people are a little cautious with this because it is being developed by the same studio that developed the weaker of the four, if you will. But I've liked what I've seen. They've certainly changed some of the fight dynamics, some of the fight mechanics. There seems to be not necessarily an RPG element, but enemies in that seem to have kind of health bars in that now. Now, they've not really showed off too much in the game. They haven't really confirmed, aside from the Court of Owls and Mr. Freeze, who is a big boss fight in the game. Um, they haven't really confirmed as to what other characters are going to be in this game. So I'm really excited. Over the next few months, we're going to find out a lot more. No official release date as of yet. I'd imagine by the autumn, summer to autumn, this game will be coming out. I'm just glad we're getting another Batman centric game. Um, Now there's another DC game coming out that I believe has been pushed back to 2022, and again, not much has been seen of it. They haven't really revealed too much about it, but from what I have seen, the little they've shown, I'm very impressed. And that is a Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League video game. Um, it looks fantastic. Now, there's been rumours for some time that there's going to be a Suicide Squad game. And I've been a little kind of on the fence. I want to see a Suicide Squad game, but I take a lot of stuff, unless it comes from a really reliable source. I kind of take a lot of rumours with a pinch of salt until it comes usually from the studio itself. Um, so yeah, there's been rumblings, and yes, it is happening. The four characters that you play in the game, I think you can kind of switch between them at any one time, I believe. Is Harley Quinn, Captain Boomerang, who again is very much a core member of the Suicide Squad now, has been for years. Killer Shark, and Deadshot. And yeah, they released a trailer, and Superman was seen, and I mean the graphics are fantastic. And this is PlayStation 5, so you can't really expect anything less. It's a really good looking game. So I'm really excited to see what they do with Suicide Squad. I think there's a lot of potential there. I think there is a lot of potential. Because characters like Harley Quinn, I mean, they don't really need any introduction and so forth. But to play Deadshot in that, I mean, the thing is with the Suicide Squad, I feel like it's one of them comic lines that it's become more well known now because of the 2016 film, obviously. But Suicide Squad has actually been one of my favourite DC comic lines for quite some time, in fact. I love the interactions and the dynamics between the squad because they don't all particularly get along. They're doing this to save their heads, basically. And one of the good rivalries I love in DC is actually between Captain Boomerang and Deadshot. They really don't get on. Both see the other as insufferable, and it's both man wants to be the better man, the better marksman, the better sharpshooter. And yeah, there's quite a rivalry between them two. And from what I've seen of the trailer of Justice League Kill Suicide Squad, they've actually captured the kind of essence and spirit of these characters perfectly, especially with Harley Quinn and Captain Boomerang, who Captain Boomerang has quite a sense of humour. I actually think he's a really funny character. Obviously, he's a Flash villain, but I'd say he's actually probably become more well known as being a member of the Suicide Squad now. Um, so yeah, I think it's pretty exciting times. I mean, obviously, I'm a case. I'd rather quality over quantity. I don't want them Warner Brothers to be churning out things left, right, and center for the sake of it and stuff. But at the same time, I just want DC to really show what they can do on the screen in TV and video games, movies especially. Because obviously, not that it's a contest or anything like that, but obviously with Marvel, Marvel's this, the MCU has been this carefully constructed universe that's proved to be hugely critical and commercially successful and stuff. DC has all that potential too. It just hasn't had the leadership. And it's a real shame. There hasn't been a clear vision or direction as to where they're going in. The films have been hit and miss. Now, don't get me wrong, they've churned out some good films, but some have been incredibly disappointing. Had they have spent more time constructing this universe, then we could probably be seeing a different story. But when BVS came out in 2016, it did kind of feel like they were trying to play catch up, which, it's not a competition. You can like both companies. Both companies respect the other. They've both contributed hugely to the industry as a whole. Marvel have created so many great characters. DC have created so many fantastic characters. I'm actually going to say that DC has created the two most iconic of all time, Batman and Superman. I don't feel like the comic industry would exist as it does if not for Batman and Superman. I just want to, for this year, I just want to see some good, solid DC stuff coming out. And I think HBO Max, from the looks of things, is going to be a great platform for that. I think there's so much goddamn potential there. And unfortunately, there's just been quite a few missed opportunities along the way. But as I've said to many people before, okay, if they fail with their films, etc., I've still got like years and decades of comic books, decades and decades of comic books to read. And I just would like to see some of these comics translated well to the big screen or TV show. Now, I think HBO Max is a fantastic thing. Just what's annoying about it is we haven't got it here in the UK. I'm like, when are we going to get it? All these planned shows and films, and bearing in mind there's other things I haven't mentioned. I just wanted to talk about a few things that Warner Brothers and DC have announced recently. There's plenty more. There's plenty more coming. We've got the Black Adam film coming with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, which I still firmly believe that Henry Cavill's Superman may very. So yeah, we've obviously got the Black Adam film coming out, which I firmly believe that Henry Cavill's Superman may very well appear in that film. As much as I'd love to see Henry Cavill back as Superman, he does deserve his own film. Superman is one of the most iconic characters of all time. He's a character that's more than worthy of having his own movie. And if we never get to see a Man of Steel 2, which is looking extremely unlikely to me now, as each year passes, it's just got more and more unlikely. And it's a shame because I liked Man of Steel. Despite its flaws, I liked it. That was released back in 2013. We really should have had a Man of Steel 2 by now. So yeah, the Black Adam film, etc. I think Black Adam's a great character. Who's very much kind of an anti-hero. Kind of started off as a kind of a straight-cut, clear-cut villain, but he has become more of an anti-hero as the years have gone on. And obviously it's been confirmed that Hawkman's going to be in the film and Dr. Fate. There's going to be quite a roster of characters in this movie. Originally, he was going to be a villain in Shazam. Obviously, we're getting Shazam 2 as well, which I'm glad about because I really enjoyed Shazam. I thought it was good fun and it had some heart there too. It did well at the box office, but Shazam, I don't feel as though made as much money as it should have. And the unfortunate thing is it was released right between Captain Marvel, which made over $1 billion, and it was released between Avengers Endgame, which is obviously the highest grossing film of all time. So I think it was always going to be a bit of an uphill struggle for Shazam at the box office, but most people that watched it liked it. It generally went down well with a lot of fans and critics and that. Obviously, we're going to be getting an Aquaman 2 as well, which, again, the highest grossing DC film of all time. Who would have predicted that? I liked Aquaman. I had issues with it and that. I didn't love it. But, it was, who thought? A successful Aquaman film. This is a character that's been the subject of ridicule for decades. But just, I just want to see, obviously, because another announcement that was recently made was that the Batman is actually wrapped filming in March. So, coming to the end of production. And then the Flash movie, finally, apparently is going to go into development, is going to start filming, in fact, in April, the following month. Now, the Flash movie was originally supposed to be a 2018 film. It was actually supposed to be coming out in the summer of 2018 before Aquaman, and the film has just gone through production hell. It's got through God knows how many directors and that. And now I firmly believe that the Flash film has taken so long to get here because they know that the DCU hasn't really gone according to plan. Okay. It hasn't really found any solid footing. So basically, I think the Flash movie is going to act as the reset button. There's going to be elements of Flashpoint there, certainly, which making a Flashpoint film would be a terrible decision. Flashpoint is too big of a storyline to be doing so early into a cinematic universe. Flashpoint is a massive, probably the best Flash story ever told. You really have to cement the characters in their roles. Now, I think there's going to be elements of Flashpoint in terms of Flash tapping into the Speed Force, etc. But it was going to be the reset button. I think the Flash movie is going to essentially reboot the DC universe. So who knows? Who knows what the future? Obviously, Ben Affleck is actually going to be appearing. We don't know in what capacity. It might be little more than a cameo or a small role. Michael Keaton's Batman, I think it's been officially confirmed that he'll appear in the Flash movie. With a character like the Flash, he's your backup plan. The Flash is such an important character in the DC universe that he can essentially reset anything by tapping into the Speed Force. So, yeah, the Batman's nearly at the end of production, but we've got to wait a whole year until that comes out. And the Flash movie, I'm not sure if there's a release date yet. I haven't actually looked. But apparently it's going to be start filming in April. So we'll see. Anyway, I think that's pretty much all I really wanted to talk about today. So yeah, I'll thanks to everyone that listened, and I'll be back again soon. And yeah, take care.